Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Water Wisdom Podcast. Get your water. I have a big ass water bottle here. Everybody take a drink of your water. We're always intending to place the codes that are being exchanged here. It's always a full-on activation on the Water Wisdom Podcast. So we're placing all of those codes in the water and amplifying the F out of them to help lead us and guide us into our soul mission. I'm gonna take a drink.
Love it. Mine's not water with water in it.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, without further ado, I have the amazing Brigitte, the intuitive healer, with me today.
Hello.
Hello, Brigitte. How are you?
I'm very good today. Very good.
Beautiful. So, Brigitte is an RN, BSN.
Mm-hmm.
I am too. So we're definitely going to vibe on that and have some conversations about the healthcare system, using air quotes there.
Mm-hmm.
But before we start, I want to let you know that I am monetized. I'm officially monetized. The podcast is monetized. We're growing. So what I've done is I've popped in the comments, and I'll include this in the description in the future. If you want to donate, donations only is what I'm doing at this point. No commercials or anything like that. You're welcome to donate, and it's always greatly appreciated. And then the other comment I'm going to pop here, hoping that it actually copied, is, okay, we've talked about this initiative with Charity Water. By June of this year, my goal is to call in $10,000 for this amazing organization that digs wells in Africa. If we can create $10,000, we actually get to support 100 communities in Africa. So I'm also going to drop that in the comments. If you feel called to donate to Charity Water, do it. Tell me that you do it. Tell me if you donate to me or to Charity Water and I want to celebrate you. I'll give you a shout out on the podcast. And I want you to notice that in the link for Charity Water, it does say Monica Clark. That's actually my married name. That's my legal name. So I had to do it through that. That's me. I'm Painter and Clark. My maiden name is Painter. So I just want to drop those.
Multi-dimensional, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm everything. Okay. All right. So let's dive in with Brigitte here. Brigitte, what I want you to share with us, please, is tell us what your soul mission on this earth is. What is Brigitte's soul mission?
I love this. And I don't have like the elevator. I don't have an elevator pitch here. So I'm just going to go off the cuff. I'm 1,000% a healer. I think that has been transparent in the many different paths that I've walked, even just on this time around. I feel like my mission at this point is to be so in my own authenticity and in the owning of my gifts, the owning of my voice, that the people in my orbit don't have any choice but to be affected by that, and kind of also are an invitation to show up in their own gift, in their own magic. And I think it's definitely has a healing vibe to it, right? I like to invite people in and share, what I know and help them heal and grow and just to feel better, to enjoy life, to see, to kind of shed the programming that we're all built into, where that life is hard and life is suffering and life is meant to be these sort of, heavy things. And I've really just gone through a lot of heavy things and gotten to this place where I'm like, no, life is meant to be good. We're here to have fun. We're here to feel good. We're here to be creators. We're here to experience all of the things that life has to offer. That's why we're here. And I think it's kind of sharing that message and then also guiding, right? And being like, hey, I learned these really cool things.
I love that. I love that, Brigitte. And so Brigitte is on Instagram mostly. And that's where I found her, _intuitive_healer. That is where, I actually think I found you on TikTok.
I don't remember where we've been chatting for a long time.
Yeah, we have.
Years. Yeah.
It has been a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about your frequency is truly your authenticity. I knew when I would scroll back in your history that some deep, profound
Yep.
events had happened in your life, because I feel like anyone that you see that has this like deep, authentic joy, which really is what comes through for me when I see you, this
Oh,
deep,
thank you.
authentic
That makes
joy.
me happy. That's what I'm like.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh,
trying to
I
be
feel
me.
it. Absolutely. And like, I could feel that, you got to bust through some shit
Yep.
to get to that space. And so I knew there was so much depth there. And that's what I'm so excited to explore with you. There's so many directions we could go here with this.
Yeah.
This is what I want to start with, though. I want to talk about our connection as nurses. So I like to call myself a retired nurse because that feels
I've been
really
using
good.
that
The word
language too.
retired.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
it. Okay. So I'm a retired nurse. So are you.
Yep.
And for me, what happened is I was kind of berated because I refused the jab.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up, before taking report on my patients, like tossing my badge at my boss and exiting.
Just yeeting out of there. You're like,
yeah, I can't do this. And that was so out of character for me,
yep.
because I'm like a total team player, always usually doing more than the rest of the crowd,
Yep.
And so that was a big step for me. And I've got 3 kids, and it's me. Like, I'm their support, financial, emotional, spiritual. It's all me. So those were freaking rough times that have followed many of us. But for me, it was like, it activated something within me that it shifted my entire life. So
that's a hell of a choice. That's you making a fucking statement. Sorry. Can I swear on here?
That's right. You're fine.
Okay.
So will you tell us about your journey? Because you have a kind of a similar experience. So many of us had to leave at that time. Will you tell us about your experience?
Yeah. So very similar, a little more drawn out than that. I also was a nurse. I was in surgery, was my specialty at that point. I worked throughout the whole thing. Showed up when people were chilling on their couches, scared to go to the grocery store. And I'm just like, let me go to work. Let me jump right in, And I saw the writing on the wall with the jab, stuff. And I was just like, ooh, they're gonna force this, and I had this little rebellion in my little group of people where I was just like, you guys, it's going to come to a point. You're not going to have a choice. And it was always, oh, they can't do that. And I was like, they certainly can. And they certainly will. So I had time to emotionally prepare for it. I just knew, like, I was like, I'm not doing this. It's a big no for me. I've gotten to this point where I truly value my body's wisdom. I'm an avid muscle tester. I muscle test everything all the time. And I listen to my body. And for me, it was a no. And, I don't go too deep on like, this is good and this is bad and this is all good and this is all bad. It's like what I go by my biological feedback, my intuitive feedback in the moment. Is this a yes or is this a no? And for me, it was a hard no. And that's all I needed to really kind of hold that energy through a lot of abuse, a lot of nastiness, a lot of nasty comments, abuse from family members, abuse from surgeons that I worked with. It got really, really bad. It got to a point where, they gave us this whole scarlet letter situation where we had to wear the N95 masks and no one else did. So then they knew who we were. Yep. And for a little while we were on religious exemptions. And so that couple of month period was actually really horrible because it was like people that I loved and cared about who loved and respected me all of a sudden were just nasty, like the ugliest side of people. And, so I kind of navigated that, and then push came to shove. It was just, you're done. They sent us a letter in the mail one day. And that's when I think I realized I wasn't anywhere near as prepared for it as I thought I was. I think there's a part of me that was like, oh, they're not going to do this. Like something will come through, because, luckily I had gotten myself to a place where I truly loved my job at that point. There's a lot of nursing that I don't love. There's a lot of the system that I don't love, but I found this little niche-y little thing where I was like, I love this job. I loved my work family, which we can get more into this too. But I had a lot of emotional grief connected with my daughter, which we can talk about that later, but that was all tied in there. And so when they, kicked us out, really, it was a punch in the gut. Like, it was in my ego. Like, I was like, I'm fired. Like, the word fired, the way they did it, they made sure that we weren't eligible for unemployment. So there's a lot of nasty language that came through. Like, the unemployment language said that I was, I'm surprised I forgot it, because it was a punch in the gut. It was that I was, I violated policy or something like that, like as if I had done something wrong, which never in my 8-year career had I, like, I'm an honors list girl. Like,
Yeah.
like, teacher's pet, manager's pet, like that. I never would be like in trouble for something. So, a lot of that, there was a lot of that ego. There was a lot of grieving. I felt like I was removed from my ability to be of service, which is so deeply ingrained with like who I am, and where I get like my gratification, my personal satisfaction from, is like helping people, healing people, showing up, being of service, being in people's energy and taking care of them is just something that really is always important to me. So I felt like that got ripped away. And, it was the middle of winter, and it really was hard. Like, it was hard. And I also knew the entire time, I was like, this is happening for a reason. And I trusted God, the universe. I was just like, if this is being removed, it's for a reason. And I will find the deeper calling in this. I will navigate the grief. I will navigate the emotional pain. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Huge. So huge. So I really want to just witness you for being the person to stand up for body sovereignty.
Yep.
Something that I felt deep grief around leaving nursing is I literally felt forgotten. I didn't have coworkers. I mean, maybe a couple coworkers stayed in touch for a little while, I'm not judging it. We're all living our lives, but I felt really forgotten, and like I was one of the best. I was the team player. I was the happy person. I was the light when everybody else was, full of negativity and doom and gloom.
Same.
And I had to really remind myself, that I'm not doing it for them, right? I really am doing it for me and allowing myself to be that cup that overflows. So I am just witnessing you for being that person to say no, because there were so many people who couldn't reach beyond their circumstances to say, I can't do this. Listen, I got 3 kids.
Yep.
I am their primary income. And I said
scary.
No.
It's scary. They hold, and that was all intentional.
Oh yeah.
It was all intentional. It was like, we are going to just strap you down and back you into a corner and hold your livelihood, your ability to feed and clothe and shelter your family over your head. And that to me just was like, I just dug in 10 times harder. I was like, oh, fine. Like, if that's the angle you're going to take, then I don't know. It just activated something in me where I was like, over my cold, icy dead body.
Yeah. Like, you're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me what to do. So Bridget and we have a lot in common. Like, we're both moms. Her birthday's July 10th. My birthday's July 11th. So we're just like finding all of these synchronicities as we're chatting before the podcast. So I feel so connected to you. Now, what I would love to talk about next, if you feel comfortable, is sharing with us a little bit about your awakening journey. So we love to inspire people and, to know that it can be like messy, right? But there's always joy and beauty on the other side. Yeah. Will you share with us a little bit about like what was that moment or event that kind of woke you up to see that there's something bigger going on here?
Yeah, it's hard to and I think most people would relate to this. It's really hard to boil it down.
Yeah.
Because it's such a journey, but there definitely have been key, like catalytic events, like tower events, or however, and getting fired was definitely one of them. I'd say that's what put me on this current path of really stepping into the aspects of myself that were always closeted and now it's like my full-time personality, right? So it's like, it's not that it wasn't me. It's always been me. I've always been into energetics and, you know, the magical side of things. And it was just a hobby. And then once after I got married, I was like, all right, well, take what I love and I'll have to make this into a thing, right? And I'll do this full time. And then prior to that, I feel like I luckily was raised, my mom was always really cool about like spiritual things and stuff like that. I was raised with a very open-minded spiritual, like, you know, there's a lot more going on. I was always in touch with like spirit and, you know, just the general concepts of those types of things. So that was cool. But then it was kind of like catalyst. And one was leaving my ex-husband, who was unfaithful, which like rocked my world. Like, it's a lot of hard, I think if I had to take it into and boil it down, it's a lot of hard choices. And that's exactly what you did, you know, tossing your badge. It's like, sometimes we're called, I think when you're called to like a higher spiritual evolution, in my experience, it's always on the other side of a hard choice. And that could just be me. I'm sure there's people out there who are like, oh, it's just easy breezy, right? You know, everybody has their own path. But for me, it was like, I deeply, deeply loved my husband and he was unfaithful and it was slowly killing me. And I had to choose myself over him and leave my entire life, like my home, my house, everything I owned. You know, that was kind of my first, like when things started clicking. And then the second big thing was when I lost my daughter, Ruby. So I have an older daughter, Lily, who's 7. And then my second daughter, I lost to a very late term stillbirth. That really was like the thing that cracked me open. Am I freezing? Are we good here?
You're good.
Okay. I'm trying to think of how to, that was the thing where it was like, there was no going back. There was no going back to this normal cookie cutter trying to just be like, okay, this is my life and these are my kids and this is my house and this is my nurse job. And that was the thing that just like ripped me in half. And then it's been all spiritual since then. Like it was like, it brought me to my knees in a way where it was like, if I don't like cling to God and my spirituality and my belief that there's a higher purpose to things, that there's something else going on here other than like the 3D experience, I'm not going to make it out of this. And that's when I really started practicing like surrender and listening to my guidance and being in touch with my intuition and making that a part of my everyday life, where before that it was like a little sprinkle here and there, like a casual relationship. And then after that, it was like do or die. It was like, if I don't find a deeper purpose in all of this, I'm not going to be able to climb out.
Yeah. May I ask you a question about that experience?
Yeah.
When I am writing posts on social media and talking about hard things and talking about the empowerment of self and knowing that you have chosen the circumstances of your life, that you have chosen the learning experiences, that you have chosen the hard experience. Before I post it, I always feel a little like tinge of resistance around experiences like what you have experienced, experiences especially around like the death of a child, because I feel like that statement is deeply, deeply triggering to, gosh, perhaps one of the deepest wounds that you could ever experience is the death of a child. And so knowing what I know about you and your practices and your beliefs, how do you feel about that statement? Is that something that you really believe, that you as a soul chose your experiences and chose the death of a child on your journey? How does that hit you?
I actually love that question. And I've pondered this for sure. It's definitely something where, because I do believe that as souls, we sort of create out, or we map out, maybe not the minutia, but like the big things, right? You're like, I'm going to come down and I'm going to experience XYZ, and this is going to happen, and these parents and those types of things. So I do spiritually believe that. And I'm also totally fine if people don't believe that, because it's, I'm very like, you do you, like, I support all beliefs. So I'm not forcing that on anybody. That's just something that I've come to understand through my own personal experience. And I think when you come upon that information naturally and you choose to believe it, I think it creates a lot of space to digest and to process these very, very difficult things. And I think where I had the fortunate experience, which this is going to sound weird because nothing about that was fortunate, but I had a lot of intuitive guidance throughout my pregnancy, after the loss, connection with her, connection with a lot of different things that happened that led me to believe that that was a part of a bigger plan. And it didn't make it any less excruciating because it was excruciating. But there's something there that I was just like, okay. And it allowed me to kind of step out of the victim mentality of like, this horrible thing happened and I'm just never going to be okay again, and really step into, I don't understand fully why something like this would happen, but I understand that my job is to handle it and to evolve the best way that I know how. And I think there's a certain amount of peace and empowerment in that, in viewing things that way. And I don't know how people, well, I shouldn't say that, but I think for me, it's a lot easier to navigate, like with my connection, with my understanding that I've gotten direct information from her that she was just, that was kind of the plan all along. And I'm like, okay. I don't know if that answered the question, but
yeah, it did. And, I would imagine that question hits you totally differently than it would have a week after this happened.
For sure. Right? We're looking at like 4.5 years later. And that's a good point. I think I can see how that would be horribly triggering, and I honor that and I respect that. And I think it's in the presentation, right? Like, I think what would be not helpful to people who are grieving is to say like, well, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. Like
that is so gross. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I think a lot of people try to get to like the level of the conversation that we're having now. And what comes out is like, everything happens for a reason. And it's really like stuffing.
Yeah.
Glorified in this like spirituality. Right. But it's really just like, make it okay. Like, you have to make this into something good. And I'm really careful of that. It's like, I don't believe that I have to make everything bad that's happened into something good. I don't believe I have to be like, oh, this happened for a reason, so I'm happy that my husband was unfaithful. I'm happy that my daughter, like, it's nothing like that. It's acknowledging that these things have happened, and also then acknowledging that I have the ability to respond to them in a way that is I don't even know how to explain this. Not as a victim.
Yeah.
Like, I have a way to respond to it in a way where I'm like, okay, this thing happened and I'm still choosing myself. I'm still choosing my growth. I'm still choosing love. And I think that was something, sometimes I have these like little writing episodes where I had written about this, where it was like, when these things happen, these things that just rip you down to your core and just rip your guts out, you have a choice. You have a choice how you respond to it. You know, are you going to respond by closing your heart? Are you going to respond by shutting down? Are you going to respond by being mad at God or source or the divine, right? And just being like, well, fuck you and you and you and you and you. And that's what so many people do, is like, they're like, well, this horrible thing happened. It ripped my guts out. And now I hate the world and I'm never going to love again. And I'm going to lock my heart up. And it's just, and you understand, like, it's so, I was like, oh, so close, but I knew that that wasn't the way. Right. And I knew that's not what Ruby would have wanted. And I knew that wasn't fair to my daughter, Lily. And so you choose to navigate the horrific thing with an open heart, and to still choose love, and to still choose connection, and to still choose vulnerability. And part of that for me is like sharing my story and talking about it, and not being like, oh, this was this horrible, ugly thing, just sweep it under the rug and never talk about it again.
Yeah.
So that's that authenticity, right? It's like, this is me, this is my story, this is what happened, this is my reality. And it has turned a lot of people off, and it has made a lot of people uncomfortable. You know, this is kind of a caveat, but like, the grief journey is very isolating. Like, especially when you wear it on your sleeve, like I have from day one, is like, people don't want to be around that, because it shows them what they're afraid of. It shows them their darkest fears. I had several friends who were pregnant at the time that I lost my daughter, who just ghosted.
Oh, wow. I bet. Shoot.
Because
that's really interesting.
They couldn't. And I'm like, I get it, but like, fuck.
Yeah. Like, we're friends. Wow. That's really powerful. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So another question is coming through. Well, more of a statement, and then you can take it where you want. What I found, a couple of things, is that on this journey, I have chosen some really, really painful experiences. And this was like the old way of learning, right? Like, this is the like deeply dualistic way of learning that we've all grown up in, and we've witnessed our parents grow up in. And we have these, you know, memories and ideas of war and just poverty and all of these like super, super painful experiences. And what I feel now for myself is that though I have chosen all of these deeply painful experiences, that like, I'm making a conscious choice now in my evolution to grow through love. Doesn't mean that hard things are not going to happen. No, it doesn't. But I have absolutely experienced a massive like timeline shift. Yes, I'm going to get woo-woo because that's who I am. I have experienced a massive timeline shift by making that conscious choice to grow through love. It's changing my experience with Mother Nature. It's changing my experience with those who I'm calling into my life. And so what I'm actually finding is that when I'm having experiences with like new people that come into my field, if it's aligned, it's super aligned. If it's not aligned, the mask is being removed immediately,
like
almost
that.
Like that. And this is the choice, is like, I want to open my heart and grow through love. I want to open my heart and grow through love. I no longer choose to base my soul's evolution on these deep, painful experiences. And so what I'm experiencing is this like crazy, amazing, like psychic activation. Every interaction that I have with people like this will be a full-on activation for me in some way, engaging with you, because there's a soul resonance, right? There's a reason we've been brought together. Whereas when I look at the painful experiences I have chosen, yes, those were psychic activations too, in some way. And I know some people don't like the word psychic, but I'm using it because I can, and because that's what's coming through. So whatever.
I like it.
So for instance, when my dad in late June, was in a near fatal motorcycle accident. Like he had chosen to leave, and I felt it. We went, we saw him. He was on a ventilator. He was intubated. He was unconscious, and he had decided to go. And I chose peace with that. And I was like, all right, Dad. And I talked to him. I was like, if you are ready to go, like I'm cool with that. I support what you want. But know that if you decide to come back, I'm not going to judge what happened. My brother and I, like, we made this agreement that we would fully support you on your next evolution, that we got your back.
Beautiful.
I was laying in bed that night, and I felt his soul come back into his body. It was like dragon energy. All of this green energy came in, and he was back, and I knew it. And I was like, okay,
Dad, let's go.
let's go.
Yeah.
And then I got a phone call this is the next morning. I got a phone call from the nurse saying, your dad has been, he's awake. So he was still intubated, but he had woken up, and your dad wants you. He was like trying to talk to the nurse.
Amazing.
So my point is,
yep,
it's like, we really do get to shift this shit.
Absolutely.
We get to shift it, and we get to decide. And I felt a tangible shift in my life of that decision. And so my question to you is, what about you? Like, what comes through for you when I talk about, because you've gone through a lot of painful experiences. What has shifted for you? Did you make that conscious choice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now that you're saying it, for sure. It's like, I don't remember, it was probably the last few years where what really dropped into me, the way that I view it is like open heart, closed heart. That's how I view it. So it's like, can I navigate these difficult things and the good things? Because sometimes good things will close your heart too, because you get too scared of the too good, right? That's where you see where people fall in love and then they close off. They're like, oh no, this is too good. You see that too, right? So it's like
in The Notebook.
Yeah, right? Like, yeah. That's a good analogy. I like that one. Can I do life with this wide open heart space? Can I be vulnerable? Can I be raw? Can I be real? Can I choose love and live from that place? And that's it. That really changes everything, because when you respond and you're navigating to life with every little like threat to your safety, you're closing your heart, then you're working with a completely different energy, right? Then you are there. Then you are, I think, in that point, and I've spent most of my life with my heart closed, as I was battling these really horrible things, it was like closed heart, closed heart, closed heart, closed heart. And then some point after Ruby, some point in the last few years, it's like, I got to do it like this. And that makes you really, really resonant with things that are in a heart frequency, right? Like resonant with people who are in a heart frequency, resonant with experiences that are in a heart frequency. And I do think that changes what you're doing. And like, you can kind of speak to a timeline jump there, right? Because if you're operating from a completely different paradigm, is like, I'm fully committed to living with an open heart from a place of love, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when it's scary, like you're on a whole different playing field, because a lot of people don't operate that way.
Yeah. You literally shift what you have access to.
And
this is not just, quantum physics, like beyond comprehension. This is physiology, right? Like our brain receives so many signals throughout the day. Like something has to be filtered out. Something has to be filtered out. And guess what is filtered out? Anything that's not on your frequency, anything that's not like within that same emotional like bridge, you literally don't have access to it, because your brain cannot access it. So this is like real neuroscience. This is real physiology of the body.
100%. Yeah. And I always think of it too as like, exactly like you said, like the reticular activating system is literally filtering out all day long. It's filtering the things that you're not vibing with, that you're not in alignment with, that you're not seeing, right? You get to set your filters to like, all right, I'm putting on these glasses now, and it's like open heart, light and love, like, seeing the beauty in life, seeing the great, good things, connecting with the other people who are kind of in that same frequency. And it's like, that is what you see. It's all there. All the colors of the spectrum are there. You can see the bad, you can see the horrific things. You can focus on that, and you can attune yourself to that by focusing on it. Or you can put these glasses on and like look over here and be like, holy shit, this is amazing. What a crazy, beautiful, wild earth we are on, right? Like, and it's not as simple as putting on a pair of glasses. I wish it was. It's a commitment. It's a dedication and an awareness, right? It requires a lot of self-awareness, but it's so worth it.
It's so worth it.
Yeah.
So worth it. Another question is coming in around, as we talk about really shifting our frequency, and you said it's not as easy as putting on a different pair of glasses.
Maybe it
right?
is. I shouldn't claim that, right?
Well, you know what? We can tap on it gets to be simple. It gets to be simple. It gets to be simple. So my question is around, when you were in that deep space of grief, right? It's like you didn't get from A to Z like that.
I spent a lot of time on the floor, literally on the floor.
Yeah. So, and it's, it's like this, sometimes this slow, like incremental, hopefully steady process to get to a space where you can actually like really live again. For those out there who are suffering through a process of deep grief, can you share with us, can you still access, like, what was that practice or that person or that space that you were able to access to kind of get you over the hump to where you could actually start to experience the world in a more like vibrant way than what you were deep in the grief with? Does that question make sense?
For sure. It's all heart-based, or it's all lifelines. It's all like my daughter. Like, I have a very distinct memory of my daughter Lily literally pulling me out of the darkness, like a fucking lifeline, like a come on, mom. And that was interesting. So it was, and this is another kooky thing. So I lost Ruby, and then within a week later, my daughter Lily broke her leg, which was like traumatic. Like, we were in the middle of moving, packing up the house, doing all that stuff. That was really dramatic. And then she fractured her leg.
Her leg?
Yeah. And she was not even 3 yet. And that was kind of the thing. It was like I was treading water.
Like, focus.
Yeah, that was the thing. So this is like another God thing, right? Like, it's like, okay. So I was, and you're still postpartum. This is kind of just coming up because this is a soapbox that I not like to go on, but I think a lot of people think like they don't really realize what a late term stillbirth is. And it's a whole baby, right? And and I'm not delegitimizing any other loss or early loss or anything like that. It's all its own thing. But like, it's full on labor, it's full on delivery, it's full on postpartum, it's full on milk, like finding something to do with your milk, right? It's full on. So anybody who's a mom is like, there was a lot of people who are just like, oh yeah, oh, she's gone. Okay, well, right. And I'm like, no, I'm fucking postpartum. And that was just like, nope, right back to work. You don't get extra time, it's like, so there was a lot of that. So I was like postpartum, all the things, pumping, because I was donating my milk at that point, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Yeah, so it's a lot. It's hard. So I was like in the void, right? But I also had an almost 3-year-old, and I could feel myself. I was dissociated. I was in a very dark place. I was barely functional. And then my daughter broke her leg. And all of a sudden, I have a baby, a 3-year-old baby who can't walk, who can't do the things she was doing, who can't take care of herself. Because the 3-year-olds are starting to get pretty independent, right? Where you could easily be like, go play over there while I sit here and wallow and dissociate, right? Because that's what I was doing. And now all of a sudden it's full contact, carrying her everywhere.
Goodness. Wow.
And yeah, right? I know. And it's like, all of a sudden I could feel myself like re-enter my body. Like, that's the best way I could describe it. Is I was out, I was done. I was like, I can't do this. Life is too hard. Out to lunch, postpartum hormones, all the things. And I was like, I'm not doing this, right? Like, I'm done. Take me. And then at some point, within the first day or two of realizing that I now have this like full contact baby again, but she was 3, I came back into my body. I was like, my daughter needs me to come back. Yeah.
Oh, I feel that through my whole body, girl. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that part of the story. I'm sure there's lots more I don't know, but that is, thank you for sharing that. Wow. Absolutely amazing. How long ago was the birth? Was Ruby's
For July 29th, 2019. So 4 and some change. Yeah, a little over 4 years ago. And it hasn't been a journey for sure. Like it's been a journey.
Yeah.
The other thing about the grief journey too that I am really big on is like one of the things I learned, there's gifts in everything. There's gifts in absolutely everything. Everybody who's been through like a horrific thing will tell you that there are gifts in it, that you are changed. Like, you know, being a nurse is like you work with someone who thinks they're going to die from cancer and they live. They are not the same person when they get that second chance at life. I'm sure your father's a very different vibe now, right?
Very, very.
And it's like it changes things. It puts things in perspective. You have this illusion that safety is permanent, or that, you know, like, oh, everything's just going to be fine until it's not fine. And that changes the way you navigate with your life, right? You take things a little less for granted. And one of the things that I personally preach, I guess I'll say, that I learned when I was crawling out of the abyss was like, I am not picking up any one iota of suffering that is not my suffering. I have had gobs of my own suffering, and I have just navigated it and digested it and survived it. And I, at some point, was just like, never again, because we're empaths, right? We're cancers. We pick it up. We suck it up. It's like, oh no, this horrible thing is happening and this horrible thing is happening and this. It's very easy to get drawn into that. And I feel it in my body. And I got to this point where I was like, I can barely metabolize my own suffering. And I sure as hell am not interested in anyone else's.
Yeah.
And it really helped me with my boundaries, to where now I feel like I had to build a boundary just to survive. And now it's like when I see things on the news, or I hear a sad story, or someone I love is navigating something difficult, I am there for them with an open heart and I send love, but I don't pick that shit up and put it on my own back like I used to.
Beautiful.
And that's something that is a choice, right? Yes. Like a lot of this is like, we have choices. We have micro choices that we make all day, every day as we're doing this crazy life thing. And if it's not yours to carry and it's heavy and it sucks, like, babe, don't pick it up. Yeah. Don't pick it up. Send love. Be there. Be supportive. Like you can hold space. Holding space is so powerful. Like holding non-judgmental space and just witnessing someone who's going through something horrible is enough. Like you don't have to be sad. I'm not saying it's not sad, but like you don't have to be like, okay, let me carry this horrible thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, let me hold you in love while you carry your own horrible thing, because I've sure as hell carried my horrible things.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is such a huge lesson, just to really push you more deeply into your own sovereignty, to feel your own power. And then too, you know, the flip of that is like not shitting on everyone else. Yes. Right. It's like, take your own stuff on, you know, and it really
accountability for it.
Yeah. And this, like this concept of codependency, which really is what the 3D life is built on. I look back at, you know, my relationship with my ex-husband, even the way that I used to engage with my children.
Yep.
And really all relationships, you know,
I'm not okay if you're not okay.
Yeah.
Scratch it was like that whole paradigm.
Yeah. It was like that deep codependency of, and two, this like, prove my rightness with me. You know, let me talk to you about my shitty situation. Let me gossip with you so that I can feel more right about the way that I was wronged. And when we hold on to that shit, all we do is just
reactivate it, re-engage.
Exactly. Constantly reactivating it. So, wow. what a beautiful story. Thank you so much for
thank you.
Going deep with us and being vulnerable and sharing that story. I know that it is a huge part of your practice and who you are now. And just, I so appreciate the way that you share authentically online, because, you know, like, who heals the healer?
Right.
You know?
And I cannot handle, I probably overshare. Like, I don't like the whitewashed, perfect, pristine, like, look at me, I have it all figured out and I'm going to teach you how to have it figured out. It's like, where's your credentials, babe? Like, what have you been through?
Yeah.
And like, we all have it, right? Like, we all have shit that we've been through. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to post that online, but like, I almost took that on personally. Like, I was like, if I'm going to show up in the online space, I'm bringing it. Like,
yeah, me too. I feel the same.
Bringing it, like, whatever.
Yeah. There are times where I will do a healing session where we'll go through a round of tapping or something, and I'll just go live to do it. I've done it in the group a couple of times, and I will just lose my shit. And those who are watching in the group, they know what I'm talking about. And I will, full transparency, looking back at that, there are times where I'm like, ooh, should I have done that? I'm like, F that. Like,
Whatever.
Absolutely, I should have done that. Like, like, how vulnerable are you willing to be as a healer, as a pioneer, as a leader? You know, your level of vulnerability really determines the depth of person that you're going to call into your field. And I want to play with deep people. Yeah, I love that. You're giving them permission. Absolutely. I love that.
You're being like, you can't teach something or guide something that you're not willing to be, right? So it's like, how am I going to
embodiment?
Yeah, like, I have to be the energy, and then I can say, hey, here's a cool way to be if you want to try it. Like that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
This feels like the perfect time to share with you the gift that I create for all of my guests.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. No, I don't.
Do you know what this is?
No, I'm excited.
Okay, so there's like a part of me that, like, I want to use it to, like, promote, to try and get people on the podcast. But then there's another part of me that's like, I like it when you don't know.
When it's a surprise.
I like it when it's a surprise. Okay, so let's see if I can screen share appropriately. So now I'm going to show you this image. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm going to explain to you what I have done here. I actually have a better image that I want to go to. Hold on. Sorry about that. Hang with me.
So weird. I was just watching something about freezing energy in water last night.
Okay, girl, this is what I did. Check this out. So for every podcast guest, to honor you and say thank you for coming on the show, I like to sit down and dive into your content and really set the intention for always the highest and greatest good, but that in some way, a message, your frequency, something that will capture your frequency and essence come through into the water. And so I like to call this like your water signature, maybe.
So cool.
Isn't that cool? So interesting, isn't it? So I'm curious, like, I mean, this is really structured.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see? How does
this
hit you?
I see an A, which is interesting. I love that it's structured. I've been calling in structure because it's not something that naturally comes to me. So my whole mission right now is calling in like dedication, structure, the masculine, like divine masculine energy. It looks like a triangle, like a beautiful little triangle, which is a magical symbol for sure. I like it. I don't know. I feel like it just feels nice. It feels good to look at.
Isn't it so pretty?
Yeah.
This is what came through while I was doing this. And for those who are listening to the podcast, if you go over to my YouTube channel and go to about the 49-minute mark, you'll be able to see this visual. As I was kind of meditating on your frequency and just listening to your beautiful voice and just allowing your magic to just fill my heart, I actually felt Ruby.
She's potent. She comes through a lot.
I felt Ruby, and it like, whew, I mean, I felt her and I was like, wow, okay. So thank you for that. That was absolutely amazing. And then I'm going to stop sharing because I want to show you. I was doing a healing session with a group of women afterwards, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to pull a card, but you were still like really present with me. And Ruby, I could feel that energy. And so my cards, one of my oracle cards popped out, and I want to show you what popped out. And I just got a huge hit from her again.
Yeah, she comes through. Oh, the moon.
The moon.
Well, do you know her middle name? Her middle name is Moon. Yeah.
Yeah. And I even feel like this image, I feel like that image reminds me of you.
Yeah. I love that. That's beautiful.
How cool is that? I was like, oh my
that.
gosh. It gets more magical and more magical.
Very magical. Yeah.
Every time. Oh, so thank you.
That was really beautiful.
Thank you so much. Okay. Before we go, we've got about 10 minutes or so. Yep. I want to talk to you about you moving into mission. So a huge part of this podcast, like the purpose of the podcast, is to encourage people to take the effing leap. There's so much fear that comes with it, you know, doubt, all of that, all of those feelings. What supported you to move into mission? Like, what was that kind of, it's time, I've got to do this?
So for me, this is funny. And I think I'm trying to word this carefully. I had been calling this in and being called to it for a long time and silencing it and kind of just living my normal life. And I think when you answer the call and you initiate and you take the brave action, I think it goes a lot smoother versus me pushing snooze on it for a decade and the universe being like, guess what? Now you're fired. Figure it out.
I feel that. Yeah.
So for me, it was like I was literally removed from my cozy life that I was clinging to. I was removed from it. And I had no choice. But that was hard and it was grief-filled and it was traumatic, right? And it's like, I think had I started listening to these pings and these nudges earlier on, you know, it could have been maybe a little softer. So, but either way is fine. But for me, it was like, that's when I really was like, okay, I know I'm a healer. I know I was very limited, you know, being a cog in the wheel of the healthcare system. You know, you have a lot of limitations there. And so I really dove into energetics, energetic healing modalities. I've always been, you know, I've done Reiki for many, many, many years. You know, so I really dove into those types of things. So I got certified as an emotion code practitioner and I got really into EFT tapping, which I know you're a mega fan of it as well. I got really creative with EFT tapping, mindset, education, nervous system regulation. That's like a big pillar of my work is, and I love me and you are very aligned on this. Is like, I love science. I love biology. I love the body. I love that we are chemical, mechanical, electrical beings. And like this stuff is all the same. Like the woo-woo stuff is the same as the science stuff. It lines up continuously over and over and over again. You can find data to back up the energetics. And like, so I like that kind of stuff. And really being able to help people on a deeper level by my work, I feel like is deprogramming, deconditioning, and releasing the blocks. Because I really believe that we come here vibrant, joyous, vibrantly well. And we have that sort of blueprint just naturally occurring. And the 3D trauma and, you know, all the human stuff that happens to us is what bogs down our frequency. And you have energetic blocks and emotional blocks. And so what I do is I help facilitate moving the clutter, taking out the trash, taking out the energetic trash, taking out the garbage, and opening up the frequencies, because the body heals itself. The body is perfect on its own. The body has magnificent wisdom. And So I have several modalities in which I attempt to do that. To allow the body to come back into just perfect coherence with its ideal
Yeah.
frequency.
That innate ability
Yes.
to
Right. So
heal.
yes, we all have it, right? And it's like, I'm not like, okay, this is what you need. Like, that's where I'm a big fan of like muscle testing and bioscans, like biofeedback, like that is like, I'm actually scanning your body, your mind, your subconscious mind, and it's all you. Like, I'm not saying, and this is, what gets tricky with more of your traditional healthcare models is like, you have the experts that are coming in and they're like, this is what you need. And they don't know anything about you. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm tailored. This is you, your body, your field, your energy. I'm scanning it. And then I'm helping you facilitate the clearing so that you can return to your natural, beautiful, juicy, vibrant baseline that we all have the ability to have, that we come here with.
Yeah, absolutely. So really that push was you losing your job as an RN.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That was my and I like, was double sucked because I loved my job. That was like, that's the trick, is like, it's not always this huge pain point where you're like, oh, my job sucks and I got to quit my 9 to 5 and I'm going to go be a healer.
Right.
It's like sometimes you have a really cushy life and you're like, it's fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you're still being called to this higher purpose and this deeper level of service. But you're like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Well, and for me, I was almost a year into my online business, which was, built on coaching and healing and doing my mission work. I still had my job and I was like, oh, well, I'll just keep my job until I get to, this certain point. But I still had that like buffer. And
Yep.
so I felt like I was all in, but there was still something that wasn't quite in it. So that day, it was like, okay, now you've got to be all in, because you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take care of your 3 kids. And then you get to expand beyond that, right? You get to expand beyond survival and just getting by. And this is what I love about the nervous system work. That was a piece that in the beginning I was missing, is I was doing a lot of the quantum, but I wasn't, I didn't understand the need to ground it in, which is ironic as I work with the physical body so much. So I want to ask you a question about, because this is just coming in, it came in before we got on through a friend of mine, is emotion code. I didn't even know what that is. What is that?
It's cool. It's really cool. It's so Dr. Bradley Nelson created it, and it's basically, you scan the body. So you use muscle testing, so applied kinesiology, to scan their field, and there's like a chart of trapped emotions, and you set a specific intention on what you're wanting to work on, what you're wanting to clear, and then you clear the trapped emotions. With his method, you use a magnet stimulating the governing meridian to clear, holding the intention, and it's very cool. That was my first like certification where I was like, because nurses, like, I'm like, I need labels. I need I need this to be like a thing.
Right.
I can't just be like, I'm a healer. So that was my first, that was really gave me full permission to like, it was just structured enough that I could really step into it and be like, I got this. And I've done hundreds of sessions since then. And it's powerful. Like, you can really move the trapped, and the whole premise is basically like with the and I have other modalities. I also use mind, body, spirit release, which is a very similar, but a little bit deeper, a little bit different. So it's, the whole premise is basically that as we're navigating life, most of us are not taught how to properly digest and process and feel our feelings. So we have these big things that happen, and feelings are not bad or wrong. They just are. And we're meant to feel them. We're meant to feel them. And when we feel them properly, they leave. And we even the lower vibrational ones, or the dense ones, they leave. And we naturally kind of return back to this like joyful disposition that children are born with, right? That's how we're meant to function. And what happens is we're taught that sad is wrong, angry is wrong, fear is wrong, bad, wrong. So we start stuffing. And we get to this point where we're just like stuffed to the brim full of these trapped emotions. and they take on their own frequency. So they start to affect your baseline frequency. And now you're vibrating at the frequency of shame and guilt and fear and insecurity and, you know, all these things, because they're like part of you. And that's kind of that premise. I believe there's multiple ways to approach that kind of work. You could do like a top-down approach with mindset. EFT is a great way to address that kind of stuff. I'm a huge fan of EFT. Anybody who's in my world I'm like, did you tap? But did you tap about it? And they're like, no, shut up. I didn't. I'm like, well, call me back when you tap.
Call me back after you tap. I love that.
So I do a lot of cool stuff with that too. So it's like, there's multiple ways to address it, but basically you're stimulating the energetic meridians in the presence of the thing you're wanting to clear with a very specific held intention. And that creates that liberation, right? And then you just naturally are like, oh, I'm good. Like, I feel better. I feel good, because that's how we're designed to be.
And then what gets to happen is the experience with your physical body gets to be like that choice point where you decide with your reality that I want to learn through love and not pain. And so, you know, a lot of times we're always focused on like, what pain am I experiencing in my body? What is my body trying to tell me? At some point, when you unify body and spirit, the experience gets to be more of the other, where your body is like, ooh, this feels good. Keep going. We get to flip that and move to a different timeline there. And then realize too, that what's coming through is that, you know, not only does the body have codes to share with us, but our soul, our consciousness has codes to share with the body. And so these cooperative components, we are not our body, right? Our body said, all of these components came together and said, I'm willing to have this experience with you. I'm willing to be your physical vessel. It's a two-way street. We get to code the body gets to code us. We came to have a very unique, specific experience with this physical vessel. And gosh, to fall in love with your body, that's the work. And this is what gets to happen when we really intentionally engage with the nervous system and clear all of that junk. I love it. I love your work. I so appreciate
your work. Yeah.
You are magical. Have you heard of Dr. Kim Duramo?
It's not ringing a bell. No.
You would love her. Look her up.
Check it out.
I had her on the podcast. You will love her. You will absolutely love her. Mind Body Medicine, Mind Body Institute is her space, and you will just geek out on her stuff.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love when the data, I love when the science, like it's something that you intuit, those of us who were intuitive, right? We know these things. And I've always been like, well, I just know this is how it is because I'm in touch. And then when I find like data and science to back it up, I'm like, yes, like I
geeking out on it.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, I knew that's how this was. I just didn't know why.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is amazing.
Coming on the podcast. I've so enjoyed engaging with you, and we can find you on Instagram at _intuitive_healer, right?
Yep.
And Bridget's website is listed in the description here. If you want to go engage with any of her services, please do so. Before we go, I do want to take a second just to acknowledge the beautiful comments. Thank you so much for engaging with us. Someone said, I watched a movie last night and the stone on this man's neck was a ruby. I talked about it. That's very cool.
My baby. She comes up she's wild. She's a force. She comes through to my friend. Like she's up to all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for all of the engagement. And Bridget, thank you for hanging with me. So we need to collaborate. I think we should collaborate, do a mastermind or something together.
We are very aligned, you and I.
Let's do it. Everybody look out. Someday we're going to collaborate. So, all right, darling, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Bye.
Have a great week. Bye.